This is another video for the VMD Recipe Hub. In this video, we're going to talk about some various access options. Who can access your Recipe Hub? How do they do that? And what rights do they have? So, I have a Recipe Hub rest here. This particular one happens to be in my name, so I'm the owner of it. If I click on it, I get full menu access. Under the admin option, I can determine if this Recipe Hub has group access or private access. Okay, very simple. Group access will mean anyone who is wearing the group tag that the Recipe Hub is in will have access to the Recipe Hub. So typically, the Recipe Hub will be in the land group name, and so that would be normally what a person would have to have active in their profile for them to be able to access the Recipe Hub. Now, group access is somewhat limited because groups can have many members. We don't want just anyone in that group to be able to pull any recipe at all from your sorter and be able to make whatever they want. So group access will not see the Get Recipe button in the menu, and there's a few other buttons that they won't see either. You can always experiment with yourself if you want. And see that. Instead, group members have to go to Extras and select Note Card. Now, right now, I don't have any note cards installed into this Recipe Hub, so I'm going to actually show you how to do that here in just a minute. This limits the group members to only make recipes that you want them to make. You create the note cards for the recipes, you put those note cards in the hub, and those are the only recipes that the group access people will be able to make. The other option that we talked about under admin is private. If your Recipe Hub is set to private, of course you can use it as the owner. It will also let anyone you have assigned as an admin to be able to use that Recipe Hub. And admins will have access to this Get Recipe. We assume that you would not make someone an admin unless there were someone that you really trusted with all of your items, or perhaps they're an alt of yours, and we assume that you would trust yourself with all of your items. So your admins do have access to this Get Recipe button and a few other buttons that are on here, so keep that in mind. Now let's go back to that group access and how to make a note card. The easiest way to do it is to use the note card creation tool on the VMD website. So I'm going to drag that over onto the screen real quick. I am on the VMD website right here, and under Tools, if you notice, there is a note card maker. So I'm going to click on that. This window comes up, search for the name. I've already got tomato soup in there because I searched it earlier to try this out. So I'll put in tomato soup, Get Recipe. It shows all of the recipes that have tomato soup in the title, and I'm just looking for the bare bones basic tomato soup. Here's the information. I'm going to slide that over just a little bit, bring up my inventory. I actually have a note card in my inventory that is named tomato soup right here. So we copy the information from the website, including the name that's in red, and we copy it down to right above where it says in note card copy. We don't copy this information down here. That's just information for you. Okay, it's got one use, 25 EP per uses, total EP is 25. The no RU batch size is 4. That information was explained in the initial setup video for the Recipe Hub. So you only copy the title that's in the red banner and this information. I'm going to right click and select copy. We're done with this. Let me get it out of the way. I'm going to open up my note card, paste that information in there, and save it. Okay, I can close that note card. Then what I'm going to do is to edit my Recipe Hub. And I'm already in the Contents tab. And I'm just going to drag that note card right into the Recipe Hub. And you may have several in here. Name them whatever you want so that your group users will know what they are. And pretty much unlimited as to how many note cards you can make and put in here. So I'm going to close all this information. Now, for group members, if they go to the menu, go to Extra, they can click on Note Card. They have some options. They can search for a note card. If you have several, you might have 30 or 40 recipes, they can search for the specific one that they're looking for. We don't have that many, as you just saw. So I'm just going to click Read Note Card. There's a default standby note in there. And then there's the one that we created called Tomato Soup. I just select that one. And then the recipe loads. You can see it says DFS Tomato Soup right there in the hover text. A note card recipe will not put the uses and the RU value in those brackets and parentheses that we talked about in the initial setup video for the Recipe Hub. Just doesn't do that. That's because it's too easy to put typos and things like that into a note card, so we just don't include that information. As long as you got the title up here, then your information is there. You can now go ahead and do your test request. You can verify that the recipe is there by looking at this information. So that's how you do a note card, and that's what your group users will have access to. There is another access function that we like to talk about, and that is people can use their own recipe hubs. So if you have admins, instead of them using your recipe hub and resing items in your name that they won't be able to pick up if they have leftover items, they can actually use their own recipe hub. Doing that is a simple process. They just buy the recipe hub and voila, that's all there is to it. They don't need to install anything into your sorters. If you've got them assigned as an admin, they will already have access. The one thing that they must do is to pick the sorters that they want to pull from. So they would click on their Recipe Hub, they would go to their admin, and then there's a Pick Owner up here. You click that, and another menu comes up. Now this is my Recipe Hub, so my name is listed up there with the 0 number. In case I'm using someone else's sorters, I can swap back to my own sorters. However, I'm also an admin on Sean's sorter. So I could select his name, and now this recipe will pull from his sorters, but it will res things in my name because I'm using my Recipe Hub. That's a very handy feature, and if I have leftover items, it allows me to pick those items up. If I want to go back to using my own sorters, very simple. Just click Admin, Pick Owner, and then go back and select myself. And now this recipe would pull from my sorters instead of Sean's sorters. So that's pretty much it for this video on the different access options for the VMD Recipe Hub.